University Park expect from its participation to help fund the pipe replacement program? Two, now that this year's session is underway, how can you facilitate a successful legislative outcome for our community, separate from the succession of the consortium of the other towns? What if, my third question is,
we have 6 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks of General Assembly meetings. I spoke to Representative DeLuca last week, and he wants to sit down and talk to try to do a public hearing around the whole issue with Aqua, because University Park is in a unique position, similar to Cairo, but Cairo's issue is electricity. University Park does not own the pipes. Aqua does. The people from University Park actually see the contract. And I believe Mike Merchant from the Illinois Commerce Commission was able to find that document and should be giving it to the administration soon, showing the details of that contract. Just like in Cairo pays the highest electric rates because the city, don't control the electric. Where they used to, but they don't anymore. And they're in the process of working with them to address that issue of allowing them to own their own electric plant again. Another thing that's going on is the fact that the issue with Aqua has to be addressed, and you all as residents will have to decide, do you want to continue with Aqua or create your own public works department that's in charge of the water pipes versus being on contract with Aqua. That's not a decision that I can make. That is up for you all to make.
Okay, I have another question. What if any are the shell bills that you have put in motion, and what type of state revenue or grants can we anticipate to be coming to us in this calendar year from that legislative initiative?
Well, one of the items that was initially discussed is economic development for University Park. And one of the great things that the state has is an agency called the Illinois Finance Board. So we introduced House Bill 3606. Representative Myers Martin is sponsored the bill. What that bill does is it creates a development authority within the University Park and City of University Park, which will allow the University Village to create different means to attract developers, retail, and light industrial to the city, while also allowing the state to come in to help finance it.
Mr. Bass, this is the mayor speaking.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
The people in our community, don't you know what kind of revenue source that is for the village? Once we get the opportunity to control our water, we're going to have Robinson Engineering coming in after Europe, talking about water and getting part of this new water program in the south suburbs. The whole goal is to get away from Aqua Water. Aqua Water owns our sewer system, our transfer station, our pumping station, and everything else they own. In other words, they have a monopoly on a small minority community, and it's time that we find a break. And this is probably the best time ever that we're going to get away from Aqua Water. And that's the process. And that's why we need a person in Springfield that's there, that's active every single day, Monday through Thursday, to advocate for us, to get us out of this horrible situation that's been plagued us for the longest. And that's the purpose of Mr. Bass being here today on the call. Unfortunately, our technology is a little bit behind, but I'm glad that we're able to speak over the telephone because it's important right now. It's extremely important. We can't, it's tired of us complaining about Aqua. It's time to just do something about it. We know what the fault is. It's only looking forward, not back. And that's what we have to have that mentality as. We have to be progressive and aggressive to get away from Aqua Water so we can all just get the water that we deserve in our community. And then we control a revenue source. Even a small town like Fort Heights brings in over $200,000 in revenue controlling their own water. What can we do in University Park if we control our own water? When you look at our own our industrial park, we're gonna reduce them taxes like crazy. Think what we can do if everything that we do in water is controlled by the village of University Park. We gotta get ahead and be aggressive about it. And that's the only reason I put Mr. Bass on the agenda, because I want to plant a seed. I might not be here when the tree grows, but at least the seed is planted. We're not afraid to do the right thing for long term for the community. Any questions? Ms. Dilworth, Ms. Covington?
So for the time that he does the lobby is from January to May, which is 6 more weeks. What happens after that?
During the off season, that's what we call it. That's when you get people from different state agencies to come talk, to try to address it, to get Aqua to get rid or move away from University Park. That's when organizations like the Sierra Club will get involved. And then you can have public hearings in the General Assembly throughout the summer and in the fall. So even though the Illinois General Assembly regular session ends in May, you can continue on with hearings, because at the end of the day, you have to come up with a framework to address the problems that Aqua has caused, and how do you remedy them? And that's not going to get done in 6 weeks.
And then also, based off of the contract, it states about expenses, reimbursable consulting expenses. So what would that consist of?
I don't charge expenses.
No travel, nothing else. It's just a flat fee, which is the $18,000 per year, $1,500 per
Correct.
month. No expenses. The contract states something different.
So,
Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
She asked you what she didn't answer.
I didn't hear her.
I said that it states something different. It says the principal shall reimburse the consultant for all reasonable expenses authorized in advance by the principal incurred in connection.
That's in case, for example, let's say all city council members came to dinner in Springfield and I paid for it, and the mayor says, you need to be reimbursed for that, then I will enter a receipt. But if you talk to any of the mayors in the Southland that I represent, I've never asked for a penny outside of what I get paid every month.
Okay, sir, I have a question. As far as a lobbyist, we had lobbyists years ago of $100,000 and he produced absolutely nothing. We have a person here we're paying over $100,000 for, which is a grant writer, which can do the same thing. I'm very familiar with, I'm just familiar with being with the lobbyists and going to lobby day, because I will be going on lobby day in April. The elected officials, if they're trained and understand what it's supposed to be, they could be their own lobbyists, because nobody can produce what they need better than we can ourselves. So all they need is the legislation. And right now, are you familiar with the new legislation that EPA is about to do as far as water?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
But
so
let me.
okay.
I'm not here to be adversarial,
No,
but
I'm just asking
the
questions,
folks over
sir.
in Robbins said the same thing when Mayor Brian brought me up, and now they're speaking the opposite.
Mhm.
So you do have a state rep, you do have a
Yes, we
state
do.
senator,
Right.
but you have so many interests coming at them that if you're not in front of them all the time, they will forget. They will forget to make those calls. I'm there to remind them to make those calls. I'm here to introduce legislation to get things done.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. We could do that as well as legislators. These trustees could go to lot and do the same thing. These legislators are here currently around us. Debbie Myers Martin, I know her very well. DeLuca, I know him very well. We could go and present our own cases. We could produce our own rather than having expenses such as that. I don't think it's really necessary that we can't do the same thing you're doing. That's all.
I beg to differ.
so this is Trustee Brooks speaking.
How you doing?
All right. I guess you're so. Yeah.
He get one.
That's my job. Let her explain.
$18,000 a year to reinvest into multi-million dollars of water communities.
She can do it.
$18,000 a year. investment.
Ernestine, I'm spending so much money on
All right, Mr. Bashir, you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Good batteries this time. Okay, so your main focus, I hear the mayor, as he, speak with, my colleague, I hear an exchange behind me. 18,000 a year, and your sole focus is to, lobby for the water rights. What exactly are you doing?
It's for issues surrounding water, economic development, and other issues that you all may come up with while I'm there.
Okay, because I hear him say about the. He just blew my phone off. Let me just keep doing my thought. So let me say this. Mr. Bass, are you there for also the water replacement for the, lead, or excuse me, replacement of the pipes for that was contaminated with lead? I'm hearing something about that too. I just want to double check on that.
There was a grant that came out a couple of weeks ago
Okay,
that I sent over to the mayor's office that deals with those replacement of those pipes.
okay. But in the short run here, this doesn't mean that University Park will have its own water department though, correct?
Oh, no, that takes a while.
Okay, because I know he said, and I understand him, and considering the person who worked two municipalities before becoming a trustee here, I worked for Harvey and I worked for Country Club Hills, and I know they have their own water department. And that takes a lot. We talking about a whole different department to finance. I mean, just alone, our public works and park and rec, they're close to $1 million. But, and I guess I can't argue too much because the last lobbyist was well over $10,000 a month. And I don't know, someone said he brought I-57. I'm gonna tell you, I didn't see nothing, but it was, the vote went through. But I wanna make sure that the residents who are listening, the residents that are here, one of the focuses is that you fighting for pipe replacement for the lead that has infected our village. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, but in reference to this statement that was made that having our own water department and taking over the water rights, I mean, we're a long way from that. And I understood that the statement was made that it's a fight that gotta start now. I personally feel the fight that needs to start is Aqua compensating everybody for the damages that they've done. I mean, wouldn't you agree for that? Because I mean, it's more litigation.
Well, it's my understanding, and from folks I've talked to in Springfield, that University Park is even limited to what they can fine Aqua for discrepancies that they're doing. And if that's the case, then that's something that legislatively has to be changed.
Okay. Oh, and I think that's what you mentioned, the class action suit.
Yeah, because we can, according to the state of Illinois, we can only charge Apple, just like they got fined for that horrible odor that plagued our community. $50,000 is the max that we can find them according to state statute. And they fight the daggone $50,000 fine. They know they make this whole community stink all over the summertime.
Yeah, but also at the same time though, the point that I want to make is that I mean, I'm glad that he's fighting for the lead replacement, but if we're in litigation, I mean, that is something that when that come in litigation, that's something that we have been discussing.
No, let me explain the litigation.
Say it again. Well, I get it.
Okay, the litigation, the state of Illinois has filed a suit for compliance against Aqua Water.
Got that.
So the village will not be the recipient of the compliance lawsuit. What Nina Fain does on a daily basis, she's with the Attorney General's office as a part of a consent decree to make sure that University Park, when it's over and done, has their fair share of the consent decree. That's her role in there as a negotiator, because they're gonna kick the can down the road right now they have extended discovery for another 3 months.
Right, so I guess, Mayor, the point that the
I told
residents want to hear as citizen satisfaction is, okay, if this land replacement need to be done, shouldn't the village at some point ourselves, when we're talking about filing a suit against Aqua, shouldn't? Because that's, I hear what you're saying by having a lobbyist, I get that. Water department, that's really a pipe dream. Because that's a long way, he just said it's a long way down. It's just a long way down. And I mean, there's certain things we can do to ask for demands of the damages that they have done. I just talked to a lady yesterday who said, a dog died drinking water. So my point is that we have a lobbyist, and I don't want it to be confused. He's down there, he's lobbying for pipe replacement.
The $50 million, the first issue, is from the B-box right now, because that's the only money that can help our residents. From the B-box to the house, right now, everything else belongs to Aqua. So we can get.
That's what he's fighting for.
Yes.
The lobbyist.
Yes, so if we can get money and funding for those residents under the water advisory, it's a win-win for all the residents, because when they came out to estimate my house about 2,300 square feet, it's about $10,000 to $12,000 from the B-box to the curb.
Right.
So some houses are gonna be a little bigger, that's in the advisory, some are gonna be smaller, that's in the advisory. But in the long run, that's what we're fighting for right now. And then next step two, because there are a couple of different phases that we can look at. For one, if we can get our stuff together as a community and get our mind forward, we can ask Aqua to sell us the water system back at the same price that they bought it for with the interest, which I doubt that that's gonna happen. But we can ask, we can look at condemnation, or we can just start getting, because we're going to DC with Congresswoman Kelly with the other infrastructure bills and bring in another source of water or connect to Chicago Heights. But the longest journey has to start. Time is enough.
It does, but everybody at some point is asking the damages that they caused.
So this is what I'm gonna do, because I can't tell nobody else what to do. I'm gonna talk to my neighbor and another neighbor, and we're gonna file our own class action suit. Because if we do it as whole as the village, then we're gonna be really, really in bad shape. It'll cost like $12 billion in litigation, because they will do it like another person lawsuit. Every time it's a decision, they'll come back and appeal. They'll come back and appeal, and they will try to bankrupt this municipality. So that's what I'm saying. So individually, we can all probably come out and win.
Yeah, we at the end of the day, I heard 2-3 things as I went back over. I heard water department. I'm also jealous. How Karen didn't travel downstate. I get it. You know, I mean, I was working just as hard as I can do. Okay. But I'm gonna get you later on that. You know, I'm gonna fuss at you. But at the end of the day, to compensate for the damages, that's the key thing. But I heard those 2 things, and I just want to make sure that this lobbyist, well, I'm quite sure it's just not like what we had. I'm not gonna say his name. We know who he is. We see him on TV. 10,000 a month. We just want to make sure we're not bumping into that same.
No. And that's because I was a member of that government board.
Okay.
Yeah. But the good thing is that there's hope at the end of the rainbow.
Question, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about, I mean, it's the same fight, but a slightly different fight. And I want to make sure it's being addressed. And I want to get your opinion on how you can help with this. So something that I've been working on is realizing the adverse effects that this is going to have on our children. Many other families didn't have the availability to not put the water into baby formula, Kool-Aid and teas and different things like that. And I've been really hitting a brick wall trying to get the children in the village tested. I've set up 3 different events for testing. And I've talked to Will County Department of Public Health. They won't come out and test. I talked to Cook County because a portion of us is Cook County. They won't come out and test. I reached out on the state level to no avail. I had to pivot to passing out lead testing kits to families, and then if they tested high, then the family will refer back to me, and I would try to help them to set up doctor's appointments to get their children tested. I've done some research. University Park's children have some of the lowest testing rates in the state. And I've also been working with the school district, and we've noticed a developmental dip. And we've also noticed more extreme cases in pre-K to third grade students. And one side of the science would say the developmental dip could be because of COVID. But the other side of the science says that the developmental dip could be directly related to lead. So if you can talk to me about how you would be able to help support the efforts of getting our children and families in general tested at a mass rate. Unfortunately, many parents and many families, many people in general, you don't go to the doctor unless something is physically bothering you. So for me to convince families to take their children to get tested and they don't see anything physically wrong is an uphill battle in itself. So this is a fight in itself. And the sad thing about this fight, we don't know the adverse effects because it may be years down the line before they actually surface. So if you can tell me how you can help us with that battle as well.
I would like to do two things. Tomorrow, I'll reach out to Allison Neckrick, who is the legislative director for the Illinois Department of Public Health, and see if she can have her folks come out and do testing. Or I can ask her what the cost would be. And I'll ask the members of the Legislative Black Caucus to put that in as an initiative to get testing done.
Mayor,
Yes,
I have a question. Does this,
make sure he can hear her or give her a microphone.
okay, no, let me ask you, because I'm not sure it's the right thing, if you don't mind. Does this pertain that we're talking about the sewers and stuff? So I have an area in my home in the basement and the sewer comes up all the time and I've had it watered almost once a year. Does this pertain to aqua? Because I'm living in, it smells, it's a horrendous odor. I have used everything but everything. And I've always spent over, I don't know how many thousands of dollars.
Too much money that you shouldn't have to spend.
Excuse me?
Yeah, more money that you should have to spend. Yeah, the sewer systems are controlled by Aqua.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that the question I should be asked? Oh, did he hear? I mean, should I ask him that or what should I do? I'm just.
That's a question of opinion. That's all. This is a conversation.
Aqua has the responsibility of sewer. We answer.
Yeah, oh, sir, what's his name? What's his name?
Yes.
I have a problem with my sewer in the basement, and it's been going on for quite some. It's been, did you hear the first part of my question?
I heard you say you had a problem with the sewers in your basement.
With the draining in the basement, yes, and the sewer comes out, and it brings up everything with it. My house can never have a fresh odor, because when I'm washing, it comes up, and it's very offensive. The odor is extremely offensive, and you can get sick of it. And I've been going through this for the last 3 years. And in addition to that, I've spent my own money because Roto-Rooter costs so much money. And they've told me that it has something to do with the pipes, and it's going to be very expensive to have it done right. So in the meantime, the longer I stay here in University Park, I'm going to continuously have that odor, and it is an odor. So I just, how can you advise me or tell me what I could do? Because actually, it should go through that. I think there's some type of orders of where you go because the smell coming into your house, you can get sick from that. So please acknowledge.
Oh, well, what I can do is one, I would appreciate if you can write a letter and give it to the mayor And I can sit down with your state rep to discuss that and talk to him about ways that the state can come in and get involved in helping. Also, this goes back to, someone said previously about damages and suing Aqua and forcing Aqua to do some things or force them out of you all's village. But I think that the first step is to, one, and that's why I'm here to let the legislators know and let public health know. In fact, I'm gonna take your letter to the governor's office to see if the governor can do the same thing like they did for Robbins and find different funding sources for Robbins to address their water problems. This stuff didn't happen overnight and it won't get fixed overnight. But the problem from what I've seen is that it's not on members of the General Assembly's radar. Just like Robbins wasn't on the radar until there was a big meeting with Mayor Bryan came to Springfield. And he talked to folks from the Speaker's office and the governor's office. And now they're calling him monthly to see where they're at, meaning the village of Robbins, on grants they're supposed to fill out.
But we're not talking about Robbins. I'm talking about University Park in my basement because as a senior citizen, this needs to be on as soon as possible. Because the more I inhale the sewer smells, odors, it's affecting me. So tell me what I need to do. Yeah, and so, and for the drainages, it comes right up into my bedroom and you can't sleep. So tell me what I need to do because actually, if I get sicker, you know, there's a problem.
You know what, the mayor met Ms. Simmons from the State Department of Aging. I think that aging should be involved in your issue. The public health should be involved with your issue. And those two agencies should be able to come up with a resolution to deal with your individual issue. But I'm sure there's other residents in your community that's having the same issue. And they need to come up with a dollar amount has to come up to address it. Aqua, if they are the true villain, they need to be held more accountable by it. Your issue is something, to be honest with you, that the media needs to know about as well.
We've done that too.
I thank you.
All right.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Trustee Brooks.
all right, so now that I can reset it and focus, I know when you were standing there, you were mentioning that the sole purpose that, and I'm saying you, sole purpose of Mr. Bass is in reference to the pipes. Am I correct?
Water.
For the water, okay. I am looking at his contract, and I think we have had this discussion before. So I guess this would be your idea, not Ms. Scott, right? She's the village manager.
May I add something? Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I do see the value in having a lobbyist, and I'm going to tell you why I think lobbyists are very powerful. Also, we can't be in both places at the same time. There's a lot that goes on when you lobby. A perfect example is the NRA. The reason why we can't ban assault rifles is a lot of it has to do with lobbyists, right? So lobbyists can do good things, and in my opinion, do things that will negatively impact communities. The purpose with Frank Bass is to do things that are everything dealing with water. One of my frustrations in trying to find grants that would cover the amount of money that's needed to change these pipes, the biggest stumble that wasn't mentioned by Mr. Bass is Robbins, all these other towns, they own their water infrastructure. They own their sewer infrastructure. We don't own any of that. Whoever made that decision to sell that, it was in the 80s. It was a really bad decision. I have my opinions about why that took place, but all of the EPA grants, all of this money, it's not available to us. And it's simply because we do not own our pipes. So we need somebody like Frank Bass who can lobby. The night of the town hall, we couldn't be in two places at one time. The mayor and Trustee Karen, they were down in Springfield at the time when I was at the town hall attending. There was, in Will County, there's $134 million that was given through the American Rescue Plan Act. 16 million of that through Will County is available for water, sewer, broadband, and it's for every single municipality in Will County. That's about what the amount of money that we are gonna probably need to remediate this situation, right? So the grant that we recently applied for, it was March 3rd, it was submitted. It was for $500,000. That is literally gonna scratch the surface when you think of the things that go into remediating the lead pipes, right? It's not just the lead pipes, it's the street that has to be repaved. Depending on the condition of that street, it may be half of that block, it may be a patch. Then you have to look at the parkway, you have to look at the grass, you will have to look at that area, the sidewalk. Then you look at the B-box. From the B-box, you go to the home. Every home is a different size, different scope of work, different price. Then you also have to look at the basement, the foundation. So, I mean, you're looking at a lot of money. It's definitely not $1 million. It's not 2 or 3. So I believe in Frank Bass, the things that he could do. And if he doesn't perform, Frank, I'm sorry, you'll be gone. But the point of the matter is we need help. I think that it's over a decades-long solution, in my opinion, but we have to start somewhere. Otherwise, we'll never get out of this hole that University Park is in with the water. Let me also say this, in a lot of municipalities, water is the lifeblood, the life source for finances. Having worked in another municipality and seeing the millions of dollars that it pumped into our budget was amazing. You know, in 1 week, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary, Matt, you can chime in, to get $250,000 in a week. So I understand the significance of the water. We can run our own water system. I've seen it. I believe in it, and that segues into Robinson Engineering. But I do think that there's value in having a lobbyist for this community, especially because of the difficulty. Let me also say, with the smell and the odor in your pipes, Mrs. Griffin, I believe that has something to do with sludge. The reason why Aqua got that fine from us was because of the odor, which when they had to appear before us in night court right here in this room, they said that they were cleaning out the sludge in the pipes. And when the odor seemingly stopped, it wasn't that the odor stopped. It's just they moved from doing it during the day to then trying to clean the sludge out at night. But nonetheless, yeah, they switched the time. So it was they're very predatory. They need to go. We actually had fined them closer to $100,000. I want to say it was around 88,000 that Mr. Belgrade was going out and finding them with. It was $1,000 a day. The problem was that because of the state laws, we were only able to fine a maximum of 50,000. Now they're appealing that. So one of the things that I did have conversation, the mayor had conversation, Trustee Karen, other people had conversation with Mr. Bass about when I did first meet him was, you need to lobby and change this legislation. There's no, why is it that it's capped at $50,000 when they're out there, they're out here wreaking damage on this community? And the president, David, whatever his name is, had the nerve to say that he thought it was a pleasant smell, which is really insulting to this. Yes, he did. And that is more reason why we have to start to get from up under them. It's not impossible. I know there's a couple municipalities, I can't think of the name, Mary, you may remember, that did get from up under Aqua. But one of the, and there's another town too, but the biggest issue that we have and why it's so difficult for us to get from up under them is the fact that we don't own our infrastructure. You know, it was sold in the 80s, 83, and I think it had to do something with white flight, right? They were leaving and they said, to hell with it, we're just gonna sell the system and make some money in the meantime off the backs of the residents who were growing by the year to be African Americans, right? And you see this happen throughout the country. Flint, Michigan is still going through this. It's almost a decade later. I don't want to go on and on, but I'm definitely going to say that I support having a lobbyist and I understand the benefits.
So thank you, Ms. Scott, for answering my question.
You guys
Right.
finish the question, trustee? You guys-
No, I'm not finished.
All right.
The term of it, I see two things, that's here. The term, it said proposal shall commence on, the 15th and be effective, the 14th. Both says 2023.
Typo.
Typo? So how long? So we saying 1 year? Okay. All right. And the termination, let me see. Just want to make sure that the next board, if they don't want them, he can go. Because once again, let's be honest, this board is asking for the lobbyists. And under 50-something days, a new board can come in and say they don't want a lobbyist. I think it goes the same thing when I mentioned about the police chief. He's here. He shouldn't have to sign a 60-day contract. I don't know why we're always doing all these things right now, turn around and say, we did it. And once again, it's election time. So, and let me also make a point. I don't see how we can run our own water department because we couldn't even take care of Park and Rec. The animals were so damn sick, they couldn't even stand up when they were walking them out and sitting on the beach. Public Works, 5 guys. Thank God ain't been no heavy snowfall. Police Department, the chief is working with scrap. UP, how are we gonna run our own water department? It amazed me. But if we're gonna try it, it happened within 2 years, which I doubt. But history does repeat itself. I just wish dreams would stop being sold. Because we can't even take care of what we have now. Can't take care of DPW, we can't take care of the police department. Fire department is understaffed. Let's be real. The golf course ain't never open, got rid of that director. Just we ain't never did nothing right. And now we're shooting for something for the next board to lobby for. So in my opinion, really to be honest, I think, again, whether the mayor is here or not, I still want to remind 3 trustees that we still here, and I've seen this before. It's a pile of mess. Nobody knows what it feels like when you go to executive session and you got what, $70 million worth of lawsuits looking at you, that the last person left with $1 million attorney, and they left 2 law firms sitting here till 3 in the morning because somebody left a mess. I'm done. Give my time.
Thank you, trustee. Anybody else from the council? We're gonna end up, Ms. Wentz, we're gonna wind it up, all right?
Okay.
All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Bass. We're gonna move on to the next chapter. Thank you so much, Frank. So it's a pleasure of the board. All right, thank you. And it's trustee Brooks, Mr. Aaron, come on up. One thing for sure, Opera does not participate in my golf outings.
Which one did you go to? The one on I or go to Deer Creek?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. My name is Aaron Fundich with Robinson Engineering. I know that I've met a few of you over the years. Certainly Robinson has had a bit of work experience with University Park over the past 10 or 15 years. I wanted to say, actually, because this has really been an amazing conversation, especially about the water. The first time I was in University Park personally was about the water issue 30 years ago, 1993. I remember that Vernon Young was the mayor. It was Consumers Illinois Water Company back then. And that was less than a decade, I believe, after the village had sold the system. And it was a big issue 30 years ago. So I do feel for, the pain that the residents and the decision makers are having to deal with respect to the private water company, without a doubt. A little bit, I know that Manager Scott had mentioned already about this grant application that was submitted with the Will County ARPA funding for the $500,000. That is something that Robinson has been very involved with numerous communities over the last 3 years with the lead service line issue. In fact, Robinson clients, some of the communities mentioned earlier today, Robinson, Dixmoor, and Dalton, and we've done it in Beecher and Frankfurt, all the way up in Waukegan. Over 40% of all the state low interest loan money that ultimately turned into grant funding for lead service lines went to communities that we've worked with. We've helped secure over $28 million of those type. Technically, they're not grants, they're forgivable loans, but they operate the same as grants. The points that were made earlier today about the need to own the system, and that is a little bit of a challenge right now with the IEPA because you don't have, you're not even the licensed operator of your system. Maybe that is another area that legislatively something can happen to help the village, help the residents directly by being able to tap into additional grant funding for replacement of the lead service line. And certainly, we're certainly willing to lend our expertise and our experience to help you with that. One of the other things I wanted to mention, I know I've had the opportunity to bump into the mayor a couple times at Mount Southborough Mayor's Managers, at Will County Governmental League. And the water issue obviously has been front and center for at least 4 years, maybe longer, with the most recent issues with the lead. We have a lot of experience. I personally have experience with other communities that have had to fight private water companies. The village of Homer Glen, it's not Aqua, but it's a different water company. They have been fighting that same battle for over 15 years. I've actually testified to the Illinois Commerce Commission before the state legislature with respect to their battle. Same thing. They don't own the supply line that brings them the water. They don't own the distribution system. They don't own the sewer system. They don't own the sewage treatment, and the rates are out of this world for what they're going through. They're actually commissioned. Robinson is working on right now a feasibility study for them to be able to build their own wastewater treatment facility. They're attacking the sewer end of it first, and we'll see what happens down the road with the water. So we know that, the other things that were stated this evening by many of you, it is a long, arduous process. This is not something that you're going to be able to achieve in months or in a year, possibly not a decade. But if there's a commitment and there's a proper path to go forward to fight the good fight, I think things can get done. There are a couple examples here in the state of Illinois and other states where there have been successes. As part of that, there's three real elements from the water system itself. You've got the water supply system. Right now, you're getting your water from the Kankakee River. There is the distribution system, that's the water mains in everybody's block and everybody's home. There is the lead service lines, obviously, is the third of the system. But the other element of that is University Park is still a growing community. You've got that I-57 corridor that was talked about earlier today. There's going to be more and more development. And the idea of trying to, as new development comes in, to make sure that the village gets new utilities dedicated to the village. And that, again, it may be a fight, but maybe that's where we need some help in Springfield to maybe change the way that some of those things are dedicated these days. But to start somewhere and to be able to make incremental progress along the way is what I think the whole community may see the benefit to as the years go by. The water supply system. I know that there have been concerns about the Kankakee River. There have been discussions about, could we go to Lake Michigan? Could we go to Chicago Heights? Chicago Heights does get Lake Michigan water through Hammond, Indiana. That's certainly a possibility. One of the other things that I've personally been involved with since 2016, back when I heard Representative Myers-Martin's name earlier this evening. She used to be the mayor of Olympia Fields, and when she was president of Southborough Mayors and Managers, it set up a water task force through mayors and managers, because it's not just University Park. Many communities have had issues, different issues perhaps than what you have faced so far, but especially with the skyrocketing water rates. And ultimately, a group of communities did band together and formed the South Suburban Water Agency, which I've been involved with since its inception. And that's a group that currently is 14 South Suburban communities. Their issue isn't as much the water quality issues or some of the odor issues that you face. They're actually all on Lake Michigan water. For them, it's a purely economic issue because Chicago and or Hammond and or other interim suppliers have raised rates more than almost quadrupled since 2007. So they are fighting to put together a brand new water system, a new intake into Lake Michigan, building a new treatment plant, and then bringing water to at least those 14 communities, with the possibility of many more towns as that project continues to progress. At a later evening, I know you have a lot on your agenda, but the South Suburban Water Agency, I'm sure, would be willing to come in and make a presentation to this board or the next board, whatever that would look like when the time is right. If the village wanted to consider something like that, that's still just the supply.
Yeah.
It's ultimately you got to fight this battle on multiple fronts: the supply system, the distribution system, the service lines, and the future development. We are in the midst, at the request of Manager Scott and the mayor, we are in the process of putting together a proposal that would be a preliminary feasibility study to look at all of these things. In the coming weeks, we would imagine that we'd have something presented to you to consider. Whether you want to go forward with all the facets of it or pieces of it at a time, that's something we can talk about in greater detail once we have that scoped out to a level that it would need to be scoped out for you to make an intelligent decision. So with that, wanted to say that we're certainly excited to help University Park with all of these water issues, including the funding side of it too. That's something where we've also had a lot of success tapping into certain funding for many South Suburban communities. Even in, you may remember Dixmoor had the big water issue a couple of years ago where they were on the news. We just found out in the governor's office, they're going to be getting $10 million to help take the next steps on the water and the problems that they've been having. So with that, we're certainly willing and able to help University Park in whichever way you'd like us to going forward. If there's any questions I can answer tonight, I can try. I'm here to just kind of introduce what where we think this thing can go, but I don't necessarily have all the answers yet.
Any questions, guys?
Question. Then, I came on in 2019. Then we have Robinson Engineering at that time. So, that's the main
On this water project.
well,
We were the village engineers for a period of time, for several years. Yes.
Yes. We came in, yeah. Explain about the South, the 14 communities real quick. We got to kind of move there.
The Southland Water Agency is actually a governmental body. It was formed in May of 2019 via intergovernmental agreement of 3 communities of South Holland, Thornton, and East Hazel Crest. And after that time, other communities joined them, and they've got 50-year water supply contracts that they've already executed. Basically, once the system is built, which we're projecting to have ready by the year 2030, so a little more than 7 years from now, each of those communities will be buying water from that new system.
Could you tell them source that it's coming from and they want to deviate from Chicago?
Oh yeah, it would be a completely independent system from Hammond or Chicago. It would be a system independently that simply bring water, treat water, and distribute water to the suburbs. No communities would be wheeling water along the way. That's a question.
So not to hold up any time. I wish we never got rid of it. Don't care what anybody else think. You did a good job my first 2 years. And with this project, I want to move forward and say, I think it should go on the agenda.
The proposal, you gotta wait for the proposal. That's what it's okay, that's fine. Anybody else? Comments?
Thank you for taking the time to see. I want to acknowledge that, or more so than acknowledge, encourage. And I'm looking at all three of the people that's running for mayor, man, just keep fighting. Because one thing for sure, nobody knows the recipe of exactly how to get us out of this situation. And the other reality is, there's a reality to this that we may never get out of this situation. What we don't want to do is give up. We don't want to stop trying to keep fighting. I'm willing to get a lobbyist a chance because we need help. And I want to keep trying to do things, different things, to help us. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that I appreciate the fact that we're trying different things. And I want to encourage everyone to keep fighting. And if the lobbyists don't work, then we got to try something else. If this don't work, we got to try something else. If Nina Fane don't work, we got to try something else. Like, we got to keep trying, because if we give up and lose hope, we'll never get out of this situation. And that's the fact. So I just appreciate the fact that we're trying. And I want to encourage everybody to keep fighting, keep trying, and just, man, just keep pushing. Because if we give up, it's never gonna change. That's a harsh reality.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right. Take the question. So we got a quick question, guys.
Sir, see, thank you.
Hello, Mayor.
How are you doing? Good to see you again. Thank you for all that you did to bring to University Park and all the grants that you gave us. But with all of that, and like Donzel just said, Trustee Donzel just said, with all of these entities, I think it'd be best, because I know Robinson Engineer offers, they have a grant writer, they have a lobbyist, they have all that within. So with that said, I think that we can work with you and get everything out of what we need, rather than all these other expenditures. But I know what you guys have, and I know the staff that you have.
I greatly appreciate the vote of confidence, but to be honest, we do have grant writers.
Yes.
We do not have an internal lobbyist. We do not have that. In fact, I would also say that the Salt and Water Agency, I'm actually the agency engineer for SWA. They do have a lobbyist that is working hard in Springfield right now to try to generate some grant funds as well.
Exactly, and that's why I know you all can link out to those people. That's what I'm saying. You have a network that's fantastic.
That's correct.
Big thing.
All right, thank you.
I don't have a question for, and it's just basically to the board, but it was just basic, if Robinson Engineer is gonna be doing a proposal and working with us with the water, and maybe we should be looking at another bid or contract to say, maybe they should be doing a lot of our engineering work versus Antero Group. Because we haven't seen, Antero Group cannot help with this particular situation, which is very big in our community, then maybe we should be looking at switching over to a company that does know how to do it, and it's gonna also help with the water situation.
All right.
Because we're paying two people, we're paying two engineers.
Thank you, Mr. Dilworth. Thank you.
It was fine, I just wanted to put it
All
out.
right, we got that. All right. Item, thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay, here we are. Pleasure. All right, thank you. All right, item 5(1)D, JDM expedite. Here we go. Let's go, guys. Go ahead.
What you have is an explanation of the company that's making the presentation.
Okay, G is making the presentation is GM Leasing. Number 2 is Steinbeck Development. Number 3 is Buddy Bear presenters.
Thank you. John Argonzalez, I'm the attorney for the applicant here. And tonight we have Brad Thaddy from the engineering team and Brian Blakemore from the construction team. This project is, we applied for 2 items here. One is a variance with regard to parking, and the other is a special use for retail sales. I'm not sure, I know there's been a lot of iteration, and staff might be able to help me here, but we've reconfigured parking many times, and I'm not sure if the variance is quite needed at this point. Because I think we've added a lot of parking, and it might satisfy without the variance. I'm not quite sure if we read that or not. We have.
No, we haven't reached that. They need to preference.
Okay, well, we'll present that part of it. So there may be, the variance was just to make sure the parking was satisfactory to the village. Anyhow, so this is a proposal to have it's going to be a center for trucks and retail sales. One of the things that working with staff, and I appreciate staff's input, they did a great job with them a month or so ago. And one of the things that you'll see on the proposed site plan is that the building is along the parkway and with landscape, with the idea that trucks would be more hidden behind the building, so they won't be as visible from the University Parkway. We've also worked on some issues. There's some floodplain areas. I know a lot of this will get into this with the civil engineering team here. And we will be available for questions, but we are really looking forward to this project. The client here has strong GM leasing services. They are a trucking company. They're very strong business that's built up over the years, and they're looking for a new home where they can do their retail sales and have the truck facility as well. So with that, I will present Fred here, who will get you some of the details on the design.
Yeah, so my name is Fred Thady. I'm with Cage Civil Engineering. I'm the civil engineering consultant for this project. And I don't want to take a ton of time, but I want to walk you through the site itself, and then we'll get into like the site plan. So we're looking at, there's two individual parcels on this, two separate tax IDs. Both are going to be under the same ownership. One may be available for additional development, hopefully soon. Total acreage is 56.4 acres. It's all within the corporate limits of the village of University Park, all currently zoned I for industrial. Some of the site constraints we're dealing with, we've got, there is a gas or petroleum pipeline along the north property line that then makes a turn and heads along the east property line all the way to the south. We've completely avoided that in our site plans. We're not going to be building anything over the top of it, putting any parking over the top of it, leaving that completely alone. There is a 50-foot wide permanent drainage easement that's been granted to the village of University Park, and it serves some industrial buildings and detention basins to our south, and that acts as a drain that continues to the Hickory Creek tributary. So that is going to be left alone. University Park has rights to that. We can't touch it. We're not going to build anything over it. That will be left in place to serve the upland properties. There is Zone A floodplain associated with that. What Zone A is it's 100-year floodplain, but it doesn't have an elevation established for it. As a part of this project, we will be going through and doing the studies to establish the floodplain elevation so we know what water heights are through there. That's a requirement of your code. That's a requirement of Will County code. So that work will be being done. There was a wetland delineation done on the property, and currently the wetland scientist has identified a wetland along the creek, basically staying within the high water or ordinary high water mark of the creek itself. There's also wetland plants associated with the drainage ditch, but again, those are two items that we're staying away from, we're not impacting. Soil borings have been done on the site. Soil consultant has turned around and said that these soils are completely acceptable for the type of use that we're going to do on here, so we don't have any adverse soil impacts that we need to deal with. Sanitary sewer is available on the north side of University Parkway. Water main is available on the north side of University Parkway as well. There is natural gas along the frontage of the site. Electric is overhead immediately adjacent to the property, as well as communications, both phone, cable TV, all of that. There are agricultural drain tiles that flow through the site. It's been studied, they've been mapped, they've been identified. Those are easy to deal with. We just need to pick them up at the property lines, connect them through the site so that we make sure we don't have any drainage issues with upstream property owners. So that's all standard Illinois drainage law, things that are required in your codes, things that we deal with all the time. So I'm not worried about those. Roadway access. So this property only has access to University Parkway. There are no other adjacent rights of way that we can connect to. So our proposed plan, there is currently one driveway with a curb cut right now. It's basically a farm access. And there's a culvert under the for the drainage that goes immediately adjacent to University Parkway. What we're proposing to do is keep that driveway where it is, but it's going to need to be widened so that this driveway can act as a mutual driveway for not only the development that we're proposing right now, but then any additional development immediately next door. The idea being to consolidate these to kind of a commercial single entrance as opposed to having multiple driveways on your University Parkway. Your roadway out there right now has a center turn lane. So we're not anticipating the need to do any additional widening, to do any construction, except right there at the entrance to University Parkway. That's kind of a summary of the existing conditions we're dealing with. What we're proposing is a 65,000 square foot precast concrete building that's going to act as truck sales and leasing facility, as well as support services. So like, you know, they can come in to do oil changes. They can come in and do maintenance. There might be truck washing facilities. There might be things like that inside the building. You can see from the picture how there's drive-in doors along both the University Parkway side, which would be the north side of the building, as well as the south side of the building. So it's sales and leasing and support services. There's customer parking immediately adjacent to the retail sales portion of it. And then there's employee parking immediately adjacent to well, not immediately, but on the University Parkway side of things. That parking is going to be completely hidden via an earthen embankment, plus both evergreen and deciduous trees, shrubs, landscaping. It's part of your landscaping code requirements. Again, I talked about the shared access drive that we're going to have to University Parkway. We are requesting or proposing an additional access to the far east side of the property. Not only primarily maybe an exit out, but it'll also be a secondary entrance for first responders. We want to make sure that we don't have just a single point of access into the property, so that if anything happens at that entrance, both your police and fire have the ability to get into the site through an additional entrance. Truck and trailer parking is going to be provided behind the building. The current site plan in front of me has about 500 parking spaces north of the creek. And then there's the option that we're considering of having additional parking to the south side of the creek. And that would be about 190 parking spaces. Stormwater management, all driven by code. That's going to be outside of the floodplain, adjacent to the creek in the low areas of the site. Again, University Park has their own stormwater ordinance, as well as the Will County ordinance that we need to adhere to. With that, do you have anything to add?
I've got one clarification. Depending on what the lead times are and when the building's going to be proposed, it may not be a precast building, it may be a concrete block building. So it will just depend on what's available and what our timing is.
Let me just mention something too, on the southern sector of the property. A portion of that land, believe it or not, is in unincorporated Will County. So that's very unusual, but north up into University Park was basically what they're looking at. But there's a break in the contingency of the southern portion of the property. It just sits in the middle of University Park, but it's unincorporated.
Okay. I don't want to sound stupid, gentlemen. A lot happened up here that fly right past my head. Where are you guys building? I don't want to sound ignorant, but no, I just don't know. Where are you guys
My name
building?
is Gene Steinmarch. I actually represent JDM. I don't even know. I've been doing this since I got out of college, and I've never had a guy beat me to the podium on my own case.
Yeah, so where is this being built?
So this is on, what they're talking about is on the southeast corner of Central and University Parkway. Where-
South,
Right over
East.
Quick Trip. Quick Trip is coming in the first, southeastern. Subsequent to that, going east is where they are. The middle section is what I'm gonna talk about. but-
okay, wait, y'all moving too fast for me. Hold on, we getting off the expressway. We going
To the light.
east.
To the light.
They're not on the north side where Terrico Group is at, right?
Right, these are the southeast where Quick Trip.
South, east.
Southeast.
The hell we do, when did we start this? What is going on?
This is the first presentation.
This is the first presentation, and before we got in, all the way in, I asked them to come to make the initial presentation to the board. This came after July 19th, came after. We're just starting to get this. This is new,
Forgive me, gentlemen.
this is new.
I've been up here 6 years, 4 years, I've always got Houdini surprises. Please carry on, this is something new. I'm assuming I'm gonna try, I heard you say University Parkway, I was trying to picture, I'm not gonna lie, I was about to say, is that Lot C a Terrico Group? I had no clue, Ms. E is talking, nobody told me anything.
Nobody, this is the first time you all are being introduced to this.
So you see why I feel like I caught a Mike Tyson left hook, but I just stood up and wobbled a little bit.
But I wanted to make sure everybody knew about what was going on here as it relates to development.
So this is already ready to see in the work.
They're to the board, they came to the board telling what they are anticipating. When you have staff to do and get this, I would not have want them to make a presentation to you if they hadn't gotten all of this together. So before they could make, bring this out and attempt, you needed to know what was being proposed in this thing. There's no other way, it's called
They are not
planning.
getting ready to build on that property.
At this point,
This is the
the village has not
presentation.
approved anything. This is just an opportunity for us to give you our concept of what we're trying to do and get your input.
Wait, you see, it's too, that's here, these guys, it's too many
No,
conversations
I think,
going on.
you know, I think Ms. C's on the right track there. This was a thought that we talked about with staff. We have applications on file, but nothing is before you to vote on yet. But we wanted to get your input early on in the process. Ms. C recommended that to get your early input. So for modifications and questions, answer your questions. So by the time we start going through the formal approval process, we've got this project in a condition that the board would be supportive of. So that was our purpose tonight, is just to start the discussion with you, to show you what we're thinking of doing. We've been working with staff to get to this point. Ms. C recommended strongly that let's have this kind of workshop night so we could flush out any concerns that might come about. And we're happy to respond to any of those questions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Rudez, would you at least have the date changed on the agenda or something, because they have nothing to do with my project?
No, we had it, they have it over there, that's why he called. I made the adjustment, because when it went on the agenda, it basically merged all. So he's separating the presentation, GM leasing, and then your development, and I'm gonna do Buddy Bear.
Who's Buddy Bear? Is there
We'll
somebody else?
explain that, yes, that's another, that's the piece that's gonna be in between, that's being proposed in between, GM leasing and Quick Trip. So this right in the center. So we'll discuss that, don't think too far ahead. That's just be fine. You'll all come.
So again, are there any thoughts or inputs? We'd be happy to talk. Let's talk about them and respond to any concerns or questions. Thank you.
Now, I had to collect my thoughts for a second, gentlemen. Thank you. And so actually, you're just proposing a truck, or it would be a truck sale or truck, because you mentioned commercial, and that's actually, that grabbed my attention because that's what I am kind of looking for.
So GM Leasing is proposing a facility that he can park trucks, repair trucks, and sell trucks and lease trucks. And we need a variance or a special use permit for the retail sale of those trucks, because it's over, I think there's a certain low number. We're proposing.
That goes to the plan commission, but I
Yeah.
wanted it all brought here first.
And what my client has pro forma is he expects to be selling about $90 million in the first, in 3 years. He believes he'll get up to 90 million of sales.
Which would be sales tax back to the village and University Park, right?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, and you said it's going to the planning commission, right? Or
Yes, sir.
we going there?
Yeah, they know we met, I don't meet them, but we met with, trustee Bolden in the meeting, staff, code enforcement, we got it all together before we actually had them come here. We wanted to make sure they knew what the provisions were, what the consequences were, and make this presentation.
Well, you know, Miss E, you know,
I'm trying to do.
Hey,
that,
I'm up here in the matrix, kicking left, kicking right, trying to find out what's going on. I don't be, like I said, hey, since you done came, you done got this, that, steel company, Amazon, Carvana, Terrico Group, Theo can't keep up. I just want to make sure that, right, because we want to make sure that there are people in the community I have to answer to too.
No problem.
You know, so I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Continue to bring the next one and the next.
I'm done.
Missy, I have one question. The special use permit that we're looking for the retail sales of trucks, will that cover the buddy there as well? Retail sales or retail use?
No, buddy bed, no. Won't have anything to do.
Yeah, they have.
They have their something different. And I'll tell you,
Okay,
you're separate and let's leave it that way.
all right. I have a question. Just on a human level. So traditionally, there's been a disconnect between the community and businesses that come into the industrial area, and that's something that we really would like to fix. We have a lot of big multi-million-dollar companies, and there's so much that the community needs, or that the community would be able to leverage from having those relationships. For example, youth program. Is there any opportunities or some type of general agreements that we can possibly establish that will help benefit youth programming within our community, whether it's internships, whether it's funding opportunity, you know, just things that can help. We're trying to make sure that companies that are coming in, we have a real relationship with the community in the sense of giving back, in the sense of partnerships, in the sense of building relationships. Just, can you speak anything to things like that we may be able to leverage?
I have to make a confession. I'm mayor of Plainfield, so I know exactly where you're coming from. And when you see these businesses coming to town, you want them to be supportive of the programming in town and give back to the community.
We talked about that too.
What I've kind of proposed a lot in my community is, you know, really trying to make those personal contacts with a lot of these businesses, get to know them on a personal level, whoever it's from, staff, mayor, whoever, and make those personal connections. And, you know, we have Edward House in Plainfield, for example, and, you know, I got to know him a little bit. I asked him, hey, would you support some activities in this park? Would you do this? They said, you know, anything healthy driven, we'll write a check for it. And, you know, building those personal relationships. So I'm sure my client would, you know, would be happy to get more involved in the community. And I think the way I've done it in my community is making sure someone from the village is getting to know these people on a personal level. And then it's a little easier to ask and say, hey, you know, I kind of use the euphemistic phrase, we'd like to see you more visible in town, which is sort of, you know, can you make a donation to some good causes that show that you care about our community? So, and it was amazing. And people are, you know, once you start making those personal connections, most people are pretty responsive to that. And certainly with the trying to sales that this company's hoping to generate here, which will produce a lot of sales tax, but obviously they'll be getting a lot of revenue come through where it wouldn't be a difficult thing to say, you know, a little back. So I think it's an important point. I bring it up often in my community as well.
Okay. Prior to like up front, besides relationship after, and then. This was a private business, it would be very difficult to try to do that legally. We talked about it, and with him being in the position that it is, I don't think we'll have any problem with that. We talked about it in the general session.
I do think there is a legal problem trying to formalize the contract.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's, again, personal relationships, it takes a lot of time to all know, to talk to people, get to know them, but it makes a big difference. Thank you.
We will bring up to our client the desire for that, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to sit down and talk about it. You know, we're always looking for labor and you know, people to fill roles, and I imagine you have no problem talking to, you know, our firm.
And that's the relationship we attempted to build. Really this thing for. And December 15th event was the first of a series that we were trying to really get a hold of getting a private public interest here. It used to be a PPI that the state used to have public private interest. And we want to be able to do this public private interest that invite you in, but there's a town and it takes you and build and whatever for the town. And we're asking, some do it, some don't. But this is a new day and we're asking that. We did talk about it.
And everything, you know, all the feedback we're getting tonight certainly going to convey to the client that it's important for this community.
Thank you so much.
The only reason he didn't make it is he's still working. So.
He's always working.
All right, any other questions are all set? Then
We're set.
we thank you for your time, and you'll be seeing more of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I see you and everybody on the
We can
staff.
leave. We can leave if you'd like.
Yeah, it won't hurt anything.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, that was confusing. I don't blame you. For the record, my name is Gene Steinmarch. I consult to a lot of local communities and as well as some private individuals regarding economic development. And some of you may know me from the Chicago Southland Economic Development Corporation. My partner, Mike Schofield, is the executive director of that. So we're very active in economic development. I'll tell you a quick anecdote. When I got out of school, one of my first jobs was running the numbers for Lincoln Mall. Lincoln Mall has gone full scale all the way through. It's been an operating mall, but now it's gone. Here stands old Gene, still standing. Anyway, the point of that all was that one of the things I do is I run numbers for people. And I try to explain to them how much money is coming in. These gentlemen are right. They're going to have a lot of money. They're going to generate a lot of money for the community. When we talk about water problems, sewer problems, things like that, one way to work our way out of the trouble is obviously to generate revenue. And you are going to find yourself in the next few years in this freight train of logistics that's coming down I-57. And I also have a project which is now if you come off of the exit from I-57 and at the first intersection you turn back north and you go a couple blocks, you're at Bond and Hamilton. That's all, of course, a manufacturing district right now. And our project is at the southeast corner of Bond and Hamilton, 7.6 acres. The difference is that when he talks about GMC trucks, I think they're going to be selling theirs primarily to the general public. We actually, JDM, which this is JDM, has a fleet of its own trucks and it sells them to contractors. And so when you talk about potential for hiring and employment, things like that, we're dying for mechanics, things like that. So one of the things that's going to happen here is you're going to have 250 independent contractors driving. Plus you're going to have truck sales, new and used truck sales. You're going to have service on this fleet. And between all of that, you're going to generate about, we think, and I'm fairly good at this, I don't miss too much, in the stabilized year, which is the third year, will generate about $470,000 in tax increment. It's not huge, but start stacking that up over 10 years, 20 years. You know, in 20 years, it's 10 million bucks. So here's what we are asking of the municipality. When we do a development of any kind, and we're providing our own stormwater, we lose about 20% of the property to the stormwater. Adjacent to this piece, the municipality has a piece that's just grown over with weeds and it's got a low spot in it. I don't know if it was meant to be a stormwater basin at one time or not, but it's much too big for the water that's going into it now. We would ask that you give us that piece of property. We will then put our stormwater over there and it will go on to our tax rolls. So not only that, if some kid finds his way over there and gets in trouble in that pond, right now the liability is on you. You have to insure it, you have to maintain it. All of those things, and it doesn't generate a penny for the municipality.
Could you hold on for the point we were talking about? Right now, it's on tax exempt roads. You have to file and tax. We now have an opportunity to get a dysfunctional piece of property that does not comply with any state, possibly similar to an MWRD discharge, to be placed back on the tax roll, excavated, put in drainage order, with that.
And landscape it, restore it. Yeah. So it'll look like an attractive piece of property. It'll also hold water. It'll be on the tax rolls. And I think it's a win-win for both parties in this case. So all we're asking at this point is for, and I know we can't take this action this evening, but we would like to get to a point where the mayor is authorized to sign a letter of understanding, which says that you'll keep that property for nobody but us for the next 4 months. You won't negotiate to give that property to somebody else. And the reason is we've got to do borings and engineering and all sorts of things. We need to get it off the market, not that it's on the market now, but we need to make sure we've got an understanding, at least for 4 months, that we can work on this property. Your own inspectors are asking us to show them borings and things. It's a lot of expensive stuff that's got to happen now. So that's what we're asking. And then we'll go back with our plan to the plan commission and so forth.
Questions? No? All right. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
All right. Pleasure. Move it. Move it. Thank you. All right, Ms. E. Buddy Bear.
Okay, this is for real asking.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Buddy Bear.
Get the microphone, please.
Buddy Bear.
Explain what Buddy Bear is, please.
Buddy Bear is not one of, but the largest car wash development as of right now in the state of Illinois. And they're looking in less than 3 years to build an additional
15 other car washes in Cook County. This particular car wash will be the first in Will County. And we're asking that this car wash that's why I'm also talking to them, them meaning GM Leasing. There are 3 parcels of property. It's been subdivided. In fact, the Plan Commission approved that to take place and the variance was given. They're on the southeast corner of University Parkway in Central. The first piece of property that's subdivided is the piece of property that the board has agreed to allow Quick Trip, the travel center shell, to build there. The second parcel of property as of right now is open. This is what the reference was made to, Cage made to, that they're looking to sell thus to a vendor. The property even further east up until the west side of that farm roadway is where they want to put GM Leasing. So what Buddy Bear and what we've been talking about is Buddy Bear to go on that center piece of property. That center piece of property, being the first in Will County, will attract the type of traffic, because if you've ever been to any of their properties, it's a very diverse car wash. There's not one around. Initially, one was to be built in Maxton, adjacent to us, but theirs fell through. It was not going to happen in Maxton. So we will be the one to get the car wash, even more specific than that, and talking with the entity. Thank you, Trustee. In fact, they are coming out here tomorrow to look. They're coming to physically and visibly look at that property. And as a result, GM Leasing is agreeing to construct a crossroad on that southern side of University Parkway there to allow for the access both ways, entrance off of Central, exit off of that, to be a resurfaced roadway and vice versa. So not only will the police and fire be able to enter in on that eastern area, they'll be able to come in on the western area, which will be Central. Because as you're going east, you have to turn left on the traffic signal to head south. As you're coming, as you're going west, you have to exit left and come south. But as you're going east, so in other words, it'll have 2 axes, or you can come directly with the turnaround there. But what I'm trying to say, Buddy Bear is excited about this. They had a dropout, so that put us in a great position. And I've been talking extensively with them, and I'm not in this session, wouldn't want to tell you the provisions of it, but we can get them out there. That entire corner could be very active location. And on the north, that would be super active up there. So that then again would adhere to what we're looking at. And we may have to go to the Plan Commission, because they may decide they want to do commercial sales in it as it relates to products or whatever. So I wanted to bring this back to the board again. We've been talking, and every time we get closer and closer, I just wanted to know the board, the process. But anyway, that would be all 3 of them taking place there. And the last one we talked about with JDM will be taking place on Hamilton, on Bond and Hamilton on the southeast corner. So, but I do have, and I'm just going to alert you, there are 2 other Trustee Brooks that were pending. And before we go any further, after we get the initial the path of going, trustee Holding, code enforcement, regardless, whatever it is, we meet on them in the strategy and how it's gonna be done, information carried through permitting process, whatever, before we bring it to the board.
How about a store? How about a store?
I am negotiating 2 stores, and I'll leave it at that. Those are what I'm talking about bringing to you. I'll
We
leave it
need
at
a
that.
store before Buddy would,
Well, if we may need, but if the possibility presents, we can't control that. But these are corporate stores. It's gonna definitely take more than a Buddy Bear to get
I don't mean to
these.
say it's a corporate store right over at Kamar. It would have serviced the college, it could have serviced Creek, Bowling, University Park, Frankfurt, Richmond Park.
But
It
when-
would have been the store. There's no other store that's close around in that area. No other store. It would have been a huge success.
One thing about economic development, it has to do when opportunity knocks and it's there. We know what we need, and it's part of the strategy that we started out with these public hearings, but that is what's being worked on. But in the meantime, this opportunity came to get some of the tax burden off citizens. It was there, so the opportunities for us to start negotiating and inviting, and that's what we did. But those 2 stores are the next 2 issues I'll be bringing to the board.
All right. Thank you, Ms. D. We're gonna move, what's the pleasure, board? All right, let's move on. This conversation. Okay. There we go. We got the state of Illinois enterprise zone. Modification. What do you need to see the map? Scott.
This is the same conversation that was brought before the board previously. They had postponed it, but I did include, because the board did request a picture, and I did send a clearer picture to the board just now so that you can see it, because in the packet, it's a little blurry and it's also cut off. So the part that you see that's like blue, that is the exact location of where they're amending, and it is right near Egyptian Trail. It is all in Moni, none of it is located in University Park. So this is something that all of the agencies, all of the municipalities have to sign off on. I think they're losing a little bit of square footage in this swap of the parcels, but this is something that we just need to vote on for formality.
Okay.
I just sent it in so it will be clear, because in the board packet, it's a little fuzzy, but if you look at the actual picture, you can see it, it's a lot clearer, and it also has the key that designates that the blue is it has on here, it says the proposed addition. And then it says the proposed removal, so you can see the what they're trying to swap out or what they're trying to replace it in, and this is all in Moni.
Questions?
I believe they're requesting a resolution.
Okay.
Yes.
Disregard this ordinance.
Yes, Madam Clerk. Yes. That's the same one that's in your board packet, but the board packet was a little fuzzy because of when it was printed. So it's the same thing, but I sent it to the board so that you can actually have a clear view. And then it has the areas that swapped out in the colors. That wasn't quite clear on this packet item. The red is what they're proposing that they want to swap out for the blue. So they are losing a little bit of area from Moni. Yeah, it's really, it's about 2 blocks. lots. No, we don't. It's all in Monique, so we don't get to go into Monique, but Matheson, Park Forest, Will County, Cook County, we all just have to, sign off on this. It's just a formality because we're all in the enterprise zone.
So I'm gonna say that's a lot of things. Like people bid, it's not there.
It's for them.
It's theirs.
It's theirs, it's in their town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not being proposed for development or anything like that. It's just anytime you change areas or locations for the enterprise zone, it has to be passed by every single person, every governing body that is a part of this organization, which I forgot also includes Richmond Park.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Scott. Okey doke. We moving forward? All right. 51G, amendment to territory consent agreement. Whatever guy before this week. Yes.
Evening. We're coming back this evening. Oh, sure, sorry. My name is Dan Wander. I am a developer with Terrago, one of the principals. This evening, we're up to do a couple things. One is to provide you sort of an update on the industrial piece of our comprehensive development that we're doing here in University Park. The second is to sort of, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. And the first part is to give you sort of an update of our project, and the second part is to discuss for a couple of minutes an update to amend for our funding agreement as part of our incentive agreement that was previously agreed to in last year. So, everybody. So we've got sort of three different slides here in terms of what we're doing. We've identified a partner to partner with us on the industrial piece, areas development, or a national developer of industrial buildings. And they're very excited to partner with us on the 62 acres, which is now, we're going to buy some additional acres, so it's going to be 74 acres total, to develop a almost 1 million square foot building. Just on Schuylkill, just east of our travel center development. So this is their new proposed building that they're going to be doing. They've got sample rendering here, and just to contextualize everything in terms of what we're doing, we've got what we're doing here on the corner, and then the building is sort of adjacent to that and next to that in terms of the new industrial building. As part of our incentive agreement, we have an agreement for an $8 million ceiling on incentive for this development. And as part of that, since this is in TIP 7, for the funding mechanism to fund that $8 million, We're gonna do pay-as-you-go TIF. So it'll be on a shared basis with the village, in terms of the new real estate taxes that will be generated by this 968,000 square foot building. Over the first really sort of 10 years in terms of the funding for the real estate taxes. So that is what we're looking to do in terms of the proposal. We been talking with village attorney to try to map out sort of all the different details in terms of doing that. We do have a draft amendment to the agreement and a draft note for the TIF to be able to pay this off in terms of that obligation. We estimate the taxes here to probably be somewhere probably between $1, maybe $1.50 a square foot in terms of where we're at as it continues to ramp up. So that in terms of some kind of sharing arrangement, it probably would be something along the line. That, yeah, 50/50 in terms of the real estate taxes. So if the taxes are $1.50 a foot, you know, we're looking at a little less than $750,000 a year to the village. And that other money goes towards paying the incentive. The original proposal, the original agreement that we have that's in place now is that we're going to pay a maximum of 50 cents a foot per year in terms of until we got to the $8 million. But in consultation with the village staff and the village attorney, we felt that it would be easier and more beneficial for both parties. And we agreed to do a percentage, which will allow the village to be able to have more of that money up front in terms of once this building gets built.
Dying down,
Mr. Wander, I don't think they heard that last statement.
The last part of the statement is that in consultation with village staff and the village attorney, we felt that it would be more beneficial to go with a percentage rather than 50 cents a foot cap that we were at. And this will allow the village to be able to get more money during the first number of years of the TIF, and we'll still be in a position to be able to get our $8 million incentive in a timely fashion.
So we're going from 50, instead of 50 cents a foot, 50% on the first 8 million, you said? Because
No.
as you talk, it kind of mumbled.
No, I'm sorry. So the original agreement, the agreement that's in place today, we were capped at 50 cents a foot.
Right.
Okay, so any amount greater than 50 cents a foot, we would get rebated.
Right.
All right, so if the taxes were $1.50 a square foot, okay, we would have to pay $450,000 a year, and then our rebate would be approximately $1 million a year. And in order to, what we think is going to be more fair in terms of being able to do this is a sharing arrangement where it would be 50% as our incentive to the developer and 50% to the village. So in that sense, the village would get more revenue as part of the real estate taxes during the time frame in terms of when we're going to get paid our incentive. The life of the TIF at this point is over a 20-year period. The life of the TIF right now is over a 20-year period. Our $8 million incentive is a ceiling in terms of what we're going to get. We're going to get that money based on our projections sometime within approximately the first 10 years.
All right, questions, anyone?
No, but I'll think on it.
Pleasure.
You already know how I feel. You don't need me to go there again.
Thank you. Pleasure. Moving on. Right. Yes. The last quick thing is I just want to make a couple of quick comments. It's the autonomous workforce. Huh? Yes, you got it right. So the autonomous workforce is coming to the Midwest very soon. And what that means to us, say for instance, our Amazon, they might start replacing every 10 employees with the robot. So what that does to us, it takes away our head tax money that we're currently receiving from the head count of non-resident employees at the University Park. So we need to start the conversation. How do we protect ourselves if robots start coming over, taking over the workforce? Well, not ours as of yet, but but it's coming.
Like they have the robots that already like pick up the pack. Well, no. I'm not at this one.
Not
This
yet.
this one is the warehouse, right?
Yeah.
So it's still manual. Okay.
But we want to
That is
guard
good.
because if there are 800 employees in there, and we get $1,500 for every non-resident employee, so that would be increasing what we get in revenue. So we just need to be kind of proactive, figure out what our home rule authorities are on how we protect every robot may take 5 heads out. So that might be losing the money. So we just gotta kind of be proactive and see how we can nip it in the bud up front. Because I'm gonna be meeting with the Moni Mayor and Matson and she and other ones, because everybody's a bit of automation.
So is this, so pretty much it's more like the discussion that we may have to put into the legislation?
Yeah, that's
Okay, let's move forward.
all right. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night.